There are so many ways to make the world more beautiful and joyful and ebullient, and seed balls are one of my favorites. So seed balls are these marvelous little, basically spaceships where you're growing seeds. You're packing them into compost and clay and sending them, for example, out the window of your car at 60 miles an hour as you drive down the highway, like I did a couple days ago coming here to Connecticut. So yes, there are so many ways to create gardens in the world, and know that it's totally valid to send seed balls out into the world, whether it's along highways or just vacant lots, places where you'd love there to be more flowers, and just maybe, good morning, Julie, just maybe there will be a few more if you send some along their way. So here's a bunch of things to keep in mind, because they're super simple and they're also far from foolproof. And here are some keys so that you can be making marvelous, yes, can you hear that? There are like so many amazing birds behind me. Definitely watch for the osprey bringing fish to their babies. So yes, let's talk. So if you want to make seed balls, and they often are called seed bombs. I'm actively trying to take the war vocabulary out of my vocabulary when necessary. So yes, seed balls rather than seed bombs. You just need 4 ingredients. Here they are. You need clay. La la la. You need compost. Oh yes. You need these wonderful things called seeds, and then just a touch of water to keep it all together. And the proportion of compost to clay is crucial. We've experimented a lot, and you definitely don't need it. This is not cake baking. It need not be precise. But as general rules, 3 parts clay to 1 part compost is an amazing combination. So let's talk clay. You can get it from all different kinds of sources. If you are a potter or know a potter clay is of course fabulous. If you are also living like as I do here in the Northeast, and you see clay embankments and streams from our glacial geology, totally valid. Go get the clay from the stream. Also, if you have clay that you're like using as a facial mask, bentonite clay, this is what this is, and totally valid, totally awesome. So clay in any of its many forms, as long as it doesn't have other chemicals in it, you're good to go. And let's talk compost, because any compost that smells like rich, wonderful earth and is actually composted is fantastic. I like to make sure that there aren't too many big, large clumps. So like this, you can see like there's a stick in this compost. It's beautiful compost, but yes, it's those big pieces that will be kind of annoying. So I like to use screened compost. And also, if you don't have any compost on hand, don't worry. You can totally just use something like potting mix. The idea is to have it be a little lighter than the clay. So let's talk. The compost are like nutrients and lightness so that the seed can germinate. The clay is just to keep that ball together so that it can be thrown out and then encase this lovely seed in everything that it needs to germinate and thrive. So yes, there are some keys for the kinds of clay, the kind of compost, and again, that proportion is 3 parts clay to 1 part compost. And oh, did I mention this is live Q&A? So if you have questions about seed balls or potatoes or anything else, let's go there. I will happily go there with you. But here are a few other things to keep in mind in this seed ball department. So next, let's talk seeds. You've combined 3 parts clay and 1 part compost, and you've got this marvelous amalgamation. And how big do you make your balls? I've been making balls all morning with our 4-year-old niece, Charlie, Char Bear for short. And so we were making grapefruit size balls. We were also making little pea size balls and everything in between. We were making snowmen. We were making all kinds of things. Snow people, yes. But here are the ideal sizes. At the largest, you want to have it be like a cherry size, but ideally it's actually a little smaller, like a large blueberry. So this is the range that I recommend your seed balls be in. And here's why. You want there to be good soil seed contact and enough moisture so that it's going to have a good environment to actually germinate. But if it's too much soil, too much compost, too much clay, they're not going to actually emerge well. They'll just try to emerge and then just die. So yes, it's tempting to have these great big tennis ball size full of seeds to lob off, but honestly, smaller is better. And also because keep in mind how many seeds go in a ball. So and our seeds are germinating very high rates of germination. I put 2 seeds in, and after I make the ball, I'm going to just press it in, and then I'll press the other in, and then I'll make sure that they're covered, and I will, make sure that it's a lovely little ball. And honestly, I could throw it like this, right? There's no reason for it to be this perfect sphere. So you just want to make sure that the seed is embedded inside, and not too many seeds. It's a really common mistake with seed balls is packing them full of seeds because you want it to grow all kinds of things and be beautiful. But here's the thing, you need to have space. We all need just enough space, right? And so if you have 4 sunflowers or 14 or 40 sunflower seeds in this little tiny half-inch ball, and they're all germinating, they're going to really stress each other out and outcompete each other. None of them are going to thrive as much as if there were just 1 or 2 seeds. So that's why I literally, especially because there are seeds, fruition seeds, I'm really confident that they're 90+% germination or above. We germination test all of our seeds, and if they don't germinate at 90% or above, we don't put them in packets. So I'm really confident that there's probably 2 plants in here, which is more than enough. So I definitely don't even want to put in 3. So yes. And what kinds of seeds go in? So here are my 2 go-tos. Here's the overarching generalization. If it's native and quick, easy to grow, doesn't need a lot of tender, loving care, those are the qualifications. So sunflowers, perfect choice. They're native. They'll grow in a crack in the sidewalk. They'll be 15 feet tall in your gorgeous garden too. But heavens, they will be totally fine no matter. They are very resilient. So Mexican sunflowers, another great choice, especially if you have lots of ranching rodentia that are going to keep eating all of those sunflower seeds and sprouts. Yes, seed balls are not going to circumvent that particular sadness. So Mexican sunflowers, totally different genus, totally different species, much more bitter, much more hairy. They're your go-to, and just as easy to grow in a seed ball. My other favorite go-to is phacelia. So phacelia, spelled Phacelia, phacelia, I always remember it and love to sing, oh phacelia, and phacelia is native, and she's purple, and they have beautiful purple pollen, not yellow pollen, purple pollen, brilliant for pollinators, especially native pollinators. And so yes, sunflowers and phacelia are our 2 native go-tos for seeds to put in seed balls that will be able to toss off the side of the window. I literally have a Tupperware and I'm throwing these out the window. Not everywhere, but I love to throw them along roadsides where I think they might be able to survive. And if there's a vacant lot, I will totally just toss them into a vacant lot as well. And so not all of them will make it, and that's totally fine, but many of them will, and that is the magic. So yes, there's a few more things I'd love to share in the seed ball department, and then I will dive straight into your many and beautiful questions, friends. So with seed balls, I also want to mention that now, happy June. June is the moment, the perfect time to be sowing, to be tossing, to be throwing your seed balls. And here's why. Because sunflowers, phacelia, they're frost tender. So it's past final frost. They're not going to die there. The soil is nice and warm. They're going to germinate quickly. And so there's plenty of time left in even our short seasons here in Zone 5. plenty of time for them to yet grow and blossom abundantly. Phacelia is a much quicker seed to flower, so if we start throwing these in the beginning of June, and then honestly we're throwing them all the way to mid-July. We're like, nope. They'll grow, but they probably won't flower abundantly. So I am excited to share this with you too. Happy seed ball season, seed truffle season. Our friend on Instagram just called out like seed truffles, because don't they look like little chocolates? If I came to a party and there were just a plate of these, I would definitely be like, oh, thank you. And dusted and powdered cocoa, you've thought of everything. So the better to toss out the windows with. So yes, you can totally make seed balls, friends, with your kiddos in your life, with children of all ages in your life. I will always be in that department. Give me a call anytime, and have so much fun making them, and so much fun tossing them, and so much fun making even more beauty in the world. So let's dive into the questions. What fun. And thanks again for joining. Christine, good morning, Christine. My sunflower seedlings were all eaten up. How would you recommend protecting them? Here's 2 options. One, I already mentioned, perhaps you heard earlier, there are Mexican sunflowers as well as classic sunflowers. So classic sunflowers are very delicious. I mean, we eat sunflowers. We eat sunflower sprouts. They're delicious. Many other mammals agree, including all of your resident squirrels, chipmunks, ad infinitum. But Mexican sunflowers, common names can be tricky because sunflower, Mexican sunflower, they're totally different genus and species. And thus, you'll see that your resident rodentia are entirely uninterested in snacking on them. They're very bitter, they're very hairy. If you eat a seed or any of their sprouts yourselves, there's nothing poisonous about them. They're just distinctly disgusting. And so your chipmunks will agree. So granted, Mexican sunflowers have a little different flower type. They're these delightful bright orange flowers with yellow centers that hummingbirds and monarch butterflies love, and they're more like a bush rather than a tall column of sunflowers. So they're a little different, but they're delightful, and check them out. You'll find those seeds on our website as well. And another thought, our friend Lori, just outside Saratoga Springs, has a beautiful garden, and she has lots of resident chipmunks. And she has learned that if she can plant the seeds and then put, like, I'm looking for a plastic water bottle, which isn't here, but imagine I'm picking up a plastic water bottle, cut off the bottom, and take off the top, like the cap, and then place it like an inch or so in the soil, so that it's solidified like a little dome over your seedling. And then she finds that if she lets them grow like most of the way up to the top then of that bottle, and then removes the bottle, then at that point the stem is too big, too hairy. It's like really fibrous, transitioning out of its delicious sprout stage. So that's how Lori, and she just taught me this, which I just love. Oh my gosh, I'm learning. This is a 14,000 way street, friends, not just a one-way street. So I learned so much from you all, never doubt. So best of luck, Christine. I can't wait to hear what you learn, what you do next, and what you learn next. And Tracy Ann says, good morning. Good morning, Tracy Ann. Running behind on finally planting my dahlia tubers from fruition. Any last minute tips? Honestly, I think I'm just glad that, if you're direct sowing them, it's really nice to wait till June, till like well after final frost, when it is not, the soil is warm. Because here's the thing, when tubers, whether it's ginger rhizomes, whether it's dahlia tubers, that whole genre of botanical phenomena, they are very prone to rotting as they're breaking dormancy. And so if the soil is a little more cool, if the soil is wet, they are so prone to rot. And so if you aren't going to start them indoors a month before final frost, waiting until that moment when it's past frost, when the nights are out of the 50s, and especially if there isn't a ton of rain in the next week, you have a really good chance of not rotting your dahlias. And just make sure that when you're planting them, imagine my arm is a dahlia tuber, plant them horizontally rather than vertically. And if you can see those eyes beginning to emerge, just make sure they're going up, but know that if you can't see the eyes, that's probably just fine. It'll take a little bit longer for them to sprout and thoroughly break their dormancy. But if it's planted this way or this way, they're gonna be just fine. So I'm so excited for you. And if you haven't already put compost in your soil with those tubers, or slow release organic fertilizer, or like anything else that worm castings, compost, by all means, just give them a little extra love and not too much nitrogen love, and then they will grow nice and gloriously for you. I'm so excited for you, Tracy. And Shannon says, hi Petra, hi Shannon. Why are my tomato leaves curling and how do I help them recover? They look sad. Without seeing what's going on, it's hard to say, my friend. And so I would be tempted to curling, if it's just curling and they're not like yellowing or brown, that can be water, but honestly, that seems really strange and not quite right. So I'm going to go ahead and say send us an email, and specifically send Heather an email. Heather is our phenomenal community care coordinator, and she just is so brilliant. And so send her pictures. Pictures are 1,000 words. So send Heather at fruitionseeds.com some pictures of what's going on and kind of a story about them. So she has lots of great info. The more info you tell her, the less she'll have to fill in blanks, the less she'll have to ask you before you can get a response. And so from there, that is my best guess. And thanks so much for asking, my friend. And Andy says, hi, within a week of putting fish emulsion on Asian spinach, it is flowering. Was that a mistake? No. Chances are you planted that Asian spinach a while ago, probably back a couple months ago even. And in the heat, Asian spinach will bolt. Not as quickly as spinach, classic spinach, but it still is going to bolt, especially if it's older and especially if it doesn't have as many nutrients in the soil. And so, yeah, putting fish emulsion on is never a mistake unless you're putting too much fish emulsion on, like the concentration is too concentrated and then you can burn plants. And also your raccoons will be like, oh, what? You called? I'll come running. So you can definitely put too much fish emulsion on. But no, it sounds like that Asian spinach, it was transitioning to being ready to bolt, going to seed before you sprayed it. And chances are it didn't dissuade it at all. So yeah, those are a few tips. You'll need to keep replanting your Asian spinach. It's not like kale. It's not like Swiss chard that just keeps producing leaves all summer long. You will need to replant it several times because especially in the heat of summer, they will just bolt. Especially if they're stressed for nutrients and stressed for water. Although, of course, they don't bolt nearly as quickly as classic spinach. And thanks for asking, my friend. And oh my gosh, Christine says, thank you, that's awesome. Definitely trying both. Yes, I'm so psyched. And Jan says, I've been putting quart yogurt containers with their bottoms cut off upside down on my sunflowers and sprouting beans. It works really well to deter birds and rodents. Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. And Lori was just putting, plastic like water bottles over them with the bottoms cut off. But I love the quart container. The quart like yogurt container, and even though they're not transparent, cutting the bottom off, and yeah, that way the chipmunks aren't going to get into them. The deer are like, what? I can't, what? And I just love that. And then you're not creating kind of a little miniature greenhouse as you are with that plastic water bottle. Brilliant, Jan, so awesome. I learned so much from you all, friends. And Courtney says, should I be pruning my indeterminate tomato suckers? Let's talk about tomatoes. Let's talk about pruning. So yes, I love to make sure that I'm taking any of those tomatoes and giving them a solid foot at the bottom where there are no suckers. And so let's talk And we'll talk so much more about this so much more soon. And also, friends, we need to come up with a different word for this. I can't stand that the tomato suckers are called suckers. There's a way better word. We don't need to be using derogatory language, even remotely. As much as it's not what we mean, let's stay clear. Okay, so for the moment, we're gonna call them suckers. And so imagine my arm is a tomato and you've planted it. And so every leaf that comes off, there's going to be a sucker just above it that creates essentially another branch. Will create additional leaves, will also create flowers and additional fruit. And every leaf will have another one of those growth points, those suckers above them. So it's kind of an exponential equation where you've got 1 and then it becomes 2, then it becomes 4, 16, and then I'm not very good at math. I just know it gets out of hand very quickly. So yes, suckers are bonus branches. Oh my gosh, Michelle, brilliant. So bonus branches, I love you so much. So yes, it's important to take off those bonus branches when they're for that bottom foot of your tomato plant, because at that point, they're not bonuses. What happens? They're not a big deal initially, but here's the thing. Once they become branches with more leaf, with more flower, with more fruit, by the time it's August and there's all of those additional leaves and bonus branches off of those lowermost bonus branches. I love this so much. Then the weight of the tomatoes, the weight of the fruit of just the plant itself, it's so much water weight. And so those lowermost branches are super susceptible, prone to just breaking off that main stem if they're too close to the bottom. And so, yes, I prune all of those bonus branches back with the lowest foot. Oh my gosh, Michelle, I'm still just reeling. Bonus branches. My day is made. And Courtney says, fantastic, I've been pruning the formerly known as suckers, but now my tomatoes are getting taller and I didn't know if I should stop. Yeah, so there are so many different options, different approaches to trellising your tomatoes. Our friend Jeremiah, Squash Blossom Farm, literally in his greenhouses, he has single leader tomatoes. He plants them a foot away and then just he has absolutely no bonus branches and they just go high. So that's how he's choosing to optimize his garden space. That's a really, I don't recommend that unless you're going to be out there all the time, and I don't recommend it. So you can also do 2 liters or 3 liters. There's lots of different systems, but here's what we generally do. With indeterminate tomatoes, let me just post about this, and there's so much more to share. And I have a bunch of videos about this also. Check out our blog, which in about 3 weeks, hopefully, our new website will be up, and all of our blog will be searchable and totally integrated with the rest of our website, with everything else. It's going to be a whole new world. I'm so excited to share this new website with you. Just you wait. But we have a great blog about pruning and trellising tomatoes. But know that cherries, we only prune that with determinate and compact tomatoes, we don't prune any of those bonus branches, 0. With indeterminate cherries and any kind of semi-determinate, we're pruning the bottom foot of those bonus branches. And then when it comes to the largest slicing tomatoes that are indeterminate, that's where we do a bit more of the pruning, because those tomatoes, we're going to get higher quality and quantity fruit if there's more spaciousness in the canopy. So yes, there's a few keys to keep in mind. And Eve says, can you show us a visual of where you could take the bonus branches off? Well, yes, this is an entirely different Q&A. Maybe this can be our live Q&A next weekend. So tune in, but in the meantime, stay tuned. And in the meantime, just imagine that my arm is your tomato branch. It's the main stem. And now imagine that there is here's a seed packet that is a leaf, and it's just a leaf. There are just leaves. It's only photosynthesizing. Look above that leaf. There is a new growth point. There's almost always a growth point between that leaf on the main stem, and then just above it is another stem coming off like this, and right in the middle of that angle. And that stem is a little bonus branch, and it's best to remove them when they're still quite small. Literally, if they're a ½ inch, that's the dream. Take them off then, right? Because it's like this tiny little bit of energy. The plant has hardly invested any energy in this great big branch. And also it just snaps right off. As they get larger, they become more fibrous as the plant is more committed to having them around and making them strong. So yes, I'm sure that was a very disappointing show and tell, because I have no tomato to show you, but stay tuned next weekend. Let's do this in the tomato patch. And just a couple more questions, friends. I'm so excited to be sharing these times with you. And Carol asked, if I lost the tag and don't remember which of my plants are determinate, is there a way to tell now by looking at it? If you lost your tag and you don't know what the variety name is, then I can't help you. If you remember the variety name, but just don't remember if they're determinate or indeterminate, you can go on our website and just search the name. But yeah, you have plenty. But otherwise, literally looking at a tomato, there's no way to know if it's determinate, indeterminate, semi-determinate. I could give you a darn good guess if it's a compact tomato, a compact dwarf tomato, even when they're seedlings, just have a very specific architecture and structure. You can kind of tell that they're not just going for it. They're going to be shorter and more stout, more thick-stemmed than any other kind of tomato. But apart from that, it's literally impossible to tell if your tomato is determinate or indeterminate by looking at its foot-tall seedling. And I'm so sorry, my friend. And Eve says, is it too late to cut them off if they have gotten quite long? It's not too late. You can totally go in and bring snips rather than tearing them off. You want to definitely be bringing in snips, scissors, shears, or a knife, and just making a clean cut. And early and often is the mantra, but it's generally not too late. So yes, stay tuned next weekend for our little video tutorial of trellising and pruning your tomatoes so that your bonus branches don't become antithetical. And thanks again to Michelle for coining the term bonus branches. I am just delighted endlessly, always, to be in conversation and community with you all, and I can't wait to see you on the farm one day. So yes, stay tuned. Actually, we are officially going to be planning every month an open Saturday of the month where, we're on the farm working all throughout the week. But on the weekends, we want to be able to welcome people. So one Saturday every month through September, we're going to be welcoming folks to the farm for farm tours and just celebrating things. Like August will be our watermelon party, where we grow hundreds of organic watermelons just for the seeds inside. I can't wait to share the watermelon with you, friends. So stay tuned for those dates. We're soon to put them on the calendar. And we're officially creating time on our calendar to do private tours as well. So if you're interested in a private tour, feel free to reach out to us. Send me an email, petra@fruitionseeds.com, and I'd love to get you on the calendar, which is just so exciting. And our final question of the live Q&A, Eve says, how often do I apply the fish emulsion fertilizer to the tomatoes? Every 2 weeks is the dream. It could be every 10 days, sooner, closer than that, more frequent. They're not going to be able to take up all those nutrients, and it can be less than that. Once a season is better than no times in a season. But yeah, every 2 weeks is what we aim for here at Fruition Seeds. And friends, sending love from our gardens to yours, and enjoy making and throwing any seed balls that you may as well.